The brutal truth is this. You are not exhausted because life is too heavy. You are exhausted because you have carried a face that was never truly yours for far too long. You smile while something inside you is breaking. You say, "I'm fine," when your soul is too tired to explain. You nod at things you do not believe. You stay silent in front of people who are slowly turning you into a more pleasant version, a more obedient version, a version that is easier to control. And then one day, standing before the mirror, you no longer ask, "Do I look good?" You ask something far more terrifying. Is this still me? Today, in this teaching, I will speak to you about something that seems simple, but can shake the entire foundation of a person's life. Stoic philosophy: live truthfully. You are not here by accident. This is not a soft piece of advice meant to make you feel better for a few minutes. This is a message I send directly to you, the one who is tired of living like an actor inside your own life. I have not come to comfort you with empty sweet words. I have come to place a mirror before you. And in that mirror, you will not only see your face, you will see every moment you betrayed yourself just to be loved, to be kept, to be recognized, to be chosen. Look closely. Maybe last night, you were lying in bed, the room silent and dark, your phone glowing in your hand. You scrolled past faces smiling on social media, people who seemed to be living perfect lives. They had money, they had love, they had trips, confidence, and words that made it seem as if they had discovered the secret of life. And there you were, lying still, with a heaviness in your chest like a stone pressing down on you. You wondered why you had tried so hard and still felt empty. Why you had pleased so many people and still felt alone. Why the more you tried to prove you were okay, the more your heart dissolved in silence. Maybe you just lost a job. Maybe you just lost someone. Maybe you just realized you were in a relationship where every day you had to make yourself smaller just so the other person would not leave. Maybe you are still sitting in a brightly lit office, hands on the keyboard, mouth saying, "Yes," while your soul is screaming inside, "I do not want to live like this anymore." You are not alone in this. Modern people have so many things to display, yet so few places where they can be real. They have beautiful photos, beautiful words, beautiful profiles, beautiful smiles, but their hearts are forced to stand outside the room. They learn how to become interesting, but forget how to become truthful. They learn how to be liked, but forget how to be free. And I say this to you with the severity of a Stoic teacher. No one can live in peace while pretending to be someone else every single day. You can deceive the crowd. You can deceive your friends. You can deceive your lover, your co-workers, your family, even the whole world with a smile you have practiced very well. But you cannot deceive your soul forever. The soul always knows. It knows when you say, "I'm okay," while you are truly in pain. It knows when you agree only because you fear being abandoned. It knows when you stay silent, not because you are at peace, but because you are afraid of losing your place in someone's heart. It knows when you call it maturity, when in truth it is only surrender dressed in the appearance of strength. Stoic philosophy does not teach you to become cold. It teaches you to become someone who can no longer be bought by the eyes of the world. The Stoic does not ask, "How can I make everyone like me?" The Stoic asks, "Am I living according to my virtue?" That is the beginning of freedom. On this journey, I will lead you through 5 fires. The first fire is the mask. You will see how deeply you have been imprisoned inside a false image. The second fire is the dichotomy of control. You will learn to become the potter before the spinning wheel of fate, no longer panicked by the noise outside. The third fire is logos. You will understand that some dark seasons do not come to bury you, but to teach you how to grow roots. The fourth fire is Apatheia. You will learn how to feel deeply without letting your wounds hold the pen and write your life for you. And the final fire is Amor Fati. You will not merely accept what has happened. You will look directly at it and say, "I was not destroyed by this path. I was forged by it." My friend, listen carefully. Living truthfully does not mean exposing every wound to the world. Living truthfully does not mean saying every thought, doing every impulse, and calling it freedom. No, that is only chaos disguised as personality. To live truthfully in the Stoic spirit is something far higher. It is when you no longer betray your values in order to be accepted. It is when you no longer turn love into a begging bowl for pity. It is when you no longer allow the past to define your entire identity. It is when you can stand between praise and criticism, between being loved and being left, between loss and hope, and still keep a quiet, untouchable place within yourself. That quiet place is where you meet your true self again. I know you are tired. Tired of trying to be strong. Tired of trying to be pleasant. Tired of trying to be successful. Tired of trying to become the version your parents, your lover, your friends, society, or the fear inside you wanted you to become. But from this moment forward, I want you to remember one thing. You do not need to become someone else in order to deserve peace. You need to return to the person you once abandoned. So do not leave yet, because perhaps after this teaching, you will not receive a formula to make the whole world love you, but you will receive something far more important, a reason to never abandon yourself again. And when a person stops abandoning themselves, their entire fate begins to change direction. When the mask becomes a prison for the soul, first, hear this truth. A mask does not feel heavy on the first day. It becomes heavy only after you forget it is there. At first, you wear it to survive. You smile so no one asks too many questions. You agree so no one leaves. You soften your voice, hide your anger, bury your sadness, and call it maturity. But deep inside, something sacred begins to disappear. I once saw a young man sitting in a crowded room. Everyone thought he was calm. Everyone thought he was kind. Everyone thought he was easy to be around. But he was not calm. He was afraid. He was not kind. He was exhausted. He was not easy. He had simply learned to erase every sharp edge of himself so others would not feel uncomfortable. And that is how many souls die before the body ever does. Not from one great tragedy, but from 1,000 small betrayals of the self. The result is always the same. One day, you no longer know what you want. You only know what keeps people from being disappointed. You no longer speak from truth. You speak from fear. You no longer live. You perform. The Stoic lesson is simple. Do not confuse peace with self-abandonment. If your silence is chosen by wisdom, it is strength. But if your silence is forced by fear, it is a chain. So ask yourself, how many times have you called it patience, when it was actually fear wearing a noble name? Second, understand this. The world rewards masks because masks are easier to control. A truthful person is difficult, not because they are cruel, but because they cannot be easily purchased by praise, guilt, or approval. A truthful person may stand alone, but they do not kneel before false belonging. Look at the modern world. People polish their images, filter their faces, rehearse their personalities, and build entire lives around being liked by strangers who do not even know their names. They do not ask, "Am I becoming virtuous?" They ask, "Am I being seen?" And when being seen becomes more important than being real, the soul becomes a marketplace. You begin to sell pieces of yourself for applause. A laugh here, a compliment there, a little attention, a little validation, a little proof that you still matter. But the price is always higher than it looks. The result is inner poverty. You may be admired and still feel empty. You may be wanted and still feel unseen. You may be surrounded and still feel abandoned. The Stoic does not live for the crowd's reflection. The Stoic lives by virtue. So ask yourself, if no one praised you for it, would you still choose the life you are living? Third, remember this. You do not lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself every time you choose acceptance over truth. Maybe it began in childhood. Maybe you learned that love came when you were useful, quiet, successful, obedient, funny, strong, or easy to manage. So you adapted. You became what the room needed. At school, you became agreeable. At work, you became dependable. In love, you became smaller. In family, you became the one who never caused trouble. And everyone praised you for it. But no one asked what it cost. The result is a strange loneliness. Not the loneliness of having no one around, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people who love a version of you that is not fully real. This is why truth feels dangerous at first. Because truth may disappoint the people who benefited from your mask. But listen carefully. Any love that requires you to disappear is not love. It is ownership with a softer voice. The Stoic lesson is this: virtue begins where performance ends. So ask yourself, who would be uncomfortable if you finally became honest? Fourth, do not misunderstand me. Living truthfully does not mean throwing your emotions at everyone and calling it freedom. That is not Stoicism. That is chaos, asking to be applauded. A Stoic does not say every thought. A Stoic does not obey every feeling. A Stoic does not turn pain into a weapon and then call it authenticity. To live truthfully is not to become uncontrolled. It is to become undivided. Your words, your values, your choices, and your inner life must begin to face the same direction. Imagine a man who says he wants peace, but keeps entertaining drama. Imagine a woman who says she values herself, but keeps returning to those who humiliate her. Imagine someone who says they want truth, but keeps lying to themselves every morning. This is not peace. This is inner civil war. The result is confusion. You feel tired, not because life is asking too much, but because half of you is trying to live while the other half is trying to hide. The Stoic lesson is clear. Do not seek a louder identity. Seek a more unified soul. So ask yourself, where in your life are you divided against yourself? Fifth, the mask often stays because you fear the consequences of removing it. You fear they will leave. You fear they will judge. You fear they will say, you have changed. But sometimes, when people say you have changed, what they mean is that you have stopped being convenient. That is not a crime. That is awakening. There will be people who preferred the old version of you, the one who apologized too quickly, gave too much, stayed too long, and accepted too little. Let them grieve that version, but do not resurrect yourself as a prisoner just to comfort those who loved your cage. The result of removing the mask is not immediate applause. Sometimes it is silence, sometimes it is loss. Sometimes it is a lonely season where you must learn to stand without the false warmth of approval. But that loneliness is not emptiness. It is space returning to you. The Stoic lesson is this: freedom often begins as discomfort. So ask yourself, are you willing to be misunderstood for a season, so you do not betray yourself for a lifetime? Sixth, when the mask falls, you do not become perfect. You become responsible. Responsible for your words. Responsible for your boundaries. Responsible for your healing. Responsible for the person you are becoming. This is where many people fail. They want authenticity without discipline. They want truth without virtue. They want to be accepted as they are, but refuse to refine what is weak, bitter, wounded, or destructive within them. But Stoic philosophy demands more. It says, yes, be real, but also become better. The result is a new kind of strength, not the strength of pretending nothing hurts, not the strength of needing everyone to understand, but the strength of standing in truth while still practicing wisdom, patience, courage, and self-command. The Stoic lesson is final. Your real self is not every impulse you feel. Your real self is the part of you that can choose virtue even when fear is loud. So ask yourself, when the mask is gone, what kind of person will remain? From everything we have seen, the mask was never your enemy at first. It was a survival tool. It helped you pass through rooms where truth was not safe. But what once protected you can later imprison you. So honor the version of you that survived. But do not let survival become your identity. The greatest insight is this: you do not become unforgettable by creating a better mask. You become unforgettable when your presence no longer feels borrowed. And here is the hard truth. The world may not clap when you return to yourself, but your soul will finally stop begging to be rescued. Dichotomy of control and the potter before the spinning wheel. First, understand this. A man becomes weak when he tries to control what was never placed in his hands. This is the first wound of the modern soul. You want people to understand you. You want them to stay. You want them to approve, to recognize, to apologize, to choose you, to finally see the truth of your heart. But the more you chase control outside yourself, the more your inner world collapses. Imagine a potter sitting before a spinning wheel. The clay turns beneath his hands. Around him, the air is too dry. The street outside is noisy. People are watching. Some judge his work. Some whisper that the shape is ugly. Some say he is too slow. But the potter does not argue with the air. He does not shout at the street. He does not beg the watchers to understand the clay. He returns to his hands. This is dichotomy of control. The Stoic does not ask, "How do I force life to obey me?" The Stoic asks, "What part of this is mine to shape?" Second, know the difference. Other people's opinions are not your clay. Their moods are not your clay. Their loyalty, their affection, their judgment, their memory of you, their decision to stay or leave, none of these things are fully your clay. But your response is, your honesty is, your discipline is, your courage is, your boundaries are, your refusal to betray your virtue is. Many people suffer not because life is cruel, but because they keep trying to mold clay that belongs to someone else. They press their hands into another person's heart and wonder why they feel powerless. The result is exhaustion. You become anxious before a message arrives. You become silent because someone may dislike the truth. You over-explain because someone may misunderstand. You shrink because someone may leave. And little by little, you become a servant to things outside your command. The Stoic lesson is simple. Peace begins when you stop shaping what is not yours. Third, do not mistake surrender for weakness. The potter who accepts the weather is not weak. He is wise. He knows that fighting the air will not save the vessel. Only steady hands will. In the same way, accepting what is outside your control does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding into places where your power cannot reach. You may care about being loved, but you cannot force love. You may care about being respected, but you cannot force respect. You may care about being understood, but you cannot force understanding. So what remains? You remain. Your virtue remains. Your next action remains. Your ability to stand upright remains. The result is not coldness, it is clarity. You stop begging the world to become gentle before you become stable. The Stoic lesson is this: do not wait for the storm outside to become quiet before you become governed within. Fourth, the spinning wheel reveals every unstable hand. When the clay begins to lean, the beginner panics. He pushes harder, he rushes, he blames the wheel, he blames the clay, he blames the noise. And then the vessel collapses. This is what happens when you react to every insult, every rejection, every delay, every silence, every glance, every rumor. You think you are defending yourself, but often you are only proving that strangers still hold the strings of your mind. A Stoic does not become unshakable because nothing hurts. A Stoic becomes unshakable because pain is no longer allowed to command the hands. The result is self-command. You may feel anger, but you do not let anger choose your words. You may feel fear, but you do not let fear choose your life. You may feel sadness, but you do not let sadness define your worth. The Stoic lesson is clear. The wheel may spin fast, but your hands must not become frantic. Fifth, living truthfully requires control of the self, not control of the crowd. Some people here live truthfully and think it means forcing everyone to accept their truth. No, that is not truth. That is hunger wearing the mask of honesty. To live truthfully is to speak from virtue, then release the outcome. Say what must be said with courage. Do what must be done with dignity. Walk away when peace requires it. Apologize when justice demands it. Remain silent when ego wants performance. This is the true art. The potter shapes the vessel, but he does not command who will praise it once it is finished. In the same way, you shape your character, but you do not own the applause. The result is freedom. You no longer live as a hostage to reaction. You no longer measure truth by how well it is received. The Stoic lesson is this: your duty is to shape the soul. The world's reaction belongs to the world. Sixth, remember the harsh truth. If your peace depends on someone else behaving correctly, then you have placed your soul in unstable hands. This is why so many people feel broken. They have built their identity on replies, invitations, compliments, apologies, promotions, romantic promises, and public approval. But these things move like weather. They come and go. Virtue must not. The potter may lose one vessel, but if his hands are trained, he has not lost his art. You may lose a person, a position, a plan, a dream, a version of the future. But if you keep your character, you have not lost yourself. The Stoic lesson is final. Control the hands, release the weather. From all of this, we see the deeper truth. Dichotomy of control is not a theory. It is a way of returning home to yourself. You stop arguing with the air. You stop begging the noise to become kind. You stop placing your worth inside the mouths of people who barely understand their own souls. And here is the insight. The world becomes less terrifying when you stop demanding ownership over it. Because then, for the first time, you discover what was always yours. Your judgment, your action, your virtue, your soul. And when a person learns to shape these things, even fate must look at them differently. Logos did not bury you. It was teaching you to grow roots. First, listen carefully. Not every dark season is a punishment. Some darkness is soil. There are moments in life when you think everything has been taken from you. A person leaves, a job ends, a dream collapses, a door closes without explanation. And because you cannot see what is happening beneath the surface, you call it destruction. But the seed also thinks it has been buried. It does not know it has been planted. This is where Logos begins to speak. Logos is not a soft promise that life will always be easy. Logos is the deep order beneath the chaos. It is the hidden rhythm that reminds you that pain can become instruction, loss can become direction, and silence can become preparation. The result of misunderstanding darkness is despair. You think life is ending, when perhaps your roots are only beginning. The Stoic lesson is this: do not curse the soil that may be teaching you how to stand. Second, remember this: growth does not always look like rising. Sometimes growth looks like disappearing. A tree spends much of its life doing invisible work. Before it reaches toward the sky, it must first descend into the ground. Its roots search in silence. No one claps, no one sees. No one praises the depth being formed beneath the surface. But without that hidden depth, the first strong wind would destroy it. Many people want visible success without invisible strength. They want applause before discipline. They want love before self-respect. They want peace before truth. They want the fruit, but refuse the root. And then, when life shakes them, they fall apart. The result is a shallow soul, beautiful from a distance, but unable to endure pressure. The Stoic lesson is simple. What is not rooted cannot remain. So ask yourself, are you trying to bloom before you have learned how to grow deep? Third, do not confuse delay with rejection. Some of the things you lost were not punishments. They were removals. Some people did not leave because you were unworthy. They left because the version of you that needed their approval had to die. Some opportunities did not disappear because life hated you. They disappeared because they were tied to a false self you were outgrowing. Logos often works in ways the wounded mind cannot immediately understand. At first, it feels cruel. Only later do you realize that what broke your plan may have protected your soul. Think of the person who begged to be loved by someone who kept making them smaller. Think of the worker who lost a job that was slowly eating their health. Think of the dream that failed because it was built on ego, not virtue. In the moment, they called it loss. Years later, they called it mercy. The result of trusting only the present pain is blindness. You judge the whole story by one painful chapter. The Stoic lesson is this: do not declare the ending while Logos is still writing the lesson. Fourth, the dark season reveals what you are made of. Anyone can speak of virtue when life is gentle, but who are you when no one praises you? Who are you when the plan fails? Who are you when your name is misunderstood? Who are you when the person you wanted chooses someone else? This is where philosophy stops being decoration and becomes a weapon of the soul. The early Stoics taught that to live well is to live according to nature, according to reason, according to the order of things, not according to panic, not according to wounded pride, not according to the desperate need to be seen. When pain comes, the undisciplined person asks, "Why me?" The Stoic asks, "What is this asking me to become?" The result is transformation. You stop being merely the victim of an event. You become the student of it. The Stoic lesson is clear. Pain that is examined becomes wisdom. Pain that is worshipped becomes a prison. Fifth, understand this harsh truth. Some people never heal because they keep demanding that life explain itself before they move forward. They sit in the ashes, waiting for every betrayal to make sense. They wait for apologies that may never come. They wait for justice from people who have no intention of becoming honest. They wait for the past to become kind before they allow themselves to live. But Logos does not require you to understand everything before you take the next step. The root does not see the forest. It simply grows. This is the discipline of the Stoic soul. To act with virtue before clarity arrives. To remain honest before life feels fair. To keep one's character intact, even when the meaning is still hidden. The result is inner dignity. You may still hurt, but you are no longer frozen. You may still grieve, but you are no longer owned by what happened. The Stoic lesson is this: move with virtue, even when meaning has not yet fully revealed itself. Sixth, when you finally grow roots, you stop begging for easy weather. This is maturity. Not becoming cold, not pretending pain does not hurt, not smiling while secretly collapsing. Maturity is the quiet realization that you can endure seasons you once feared. That loneliness did not destroy you. That rejection did not erase you. That loss did not finish you. That silence did not make you invisible. It made you deeper. And depth is rare in a world addicted to surfaces. The result is a different kind of strength. You no longer chase every passing light. You no longer panic when life becomes quiet. You no longer interpret every delay as failure. You understand that unseen growth is still growth. The Stoic lesson is final. If the season does not give you flowers, let it give you roots. From all of this, we see the greater truth. Logos did not bury you to erase you. It placed you in the dark, so the shallow parts could fall away, and the deeper parts could learn how to live. So do not despise the hidden season. Do not curse the silence. Do not call yourself forgotten just because no one can see what is forming inside you. The seed does not need applause to become a tree, and neither do you. Here is the insight. A person who has grown roots in darkness cannot be easily destroyed by daylight's storms. And when you understand this, suffering no longer asks only, "Why did this happen to me?" It begins to ask something far more powerful. What kind of soul will I become because of this? Do not let the wound hold the pen. First, hear this clearly. Your wound may explain your pain, but it must never be allowed to write your identity. Many people are hurt once, then spend the rest of their lives letting that wound become their author. They say, "I am this way because I was betrayed. I am cold because I was abandoned. I cannot trust because someone lied. I destroy love because love destroyed me first." And perhaps the pain was real. Perhaps the betrayal was cruel. Perhaps the loss truly broke something inside you. But if the wound holds the pen forever, then the person who hurt you is still helping write your future. Imagine your life as a long manuscript. Some pages are stained. Some chapters are torn. Some lines were written in grief, anger, shame, or fear. But the pen must return to your hand. The result of giving the pen to pain is repetition. You keep living the same chapter with different people. The Stoic lesson is this: what happened to you is not fully in your control. What you allow it to become inside you is where your power begins. Second, do not confuse honesty with worshipping the wound. A Stoic does not deny pain. A Stoic does not pretend the heart is made of stone. A Stoic does not say, "I feel nothing," while bleeding in silence. No, that is not wisdom. That is repression, wearing armor. But the Stoic also refuses to kneel before pain, as if pain were a god. There is a difference between saying, "I was wounded," and saying, "My wound is now my master." There is a difference between healing and building a temple around what hurt you. Look at the person who brings an old betrayal into every new relationship. Look at the one who punishes innocent people for crimes they did not commit. Look at the one who calls it self-protection, but is actually letting fear choose every decision. The result is a closed life. You may avoid being hurt again, but you also avoid being truly alive. The Stoic lesson is simple. A wound deserves attention, not worship. Third, this is where apatheia must be understood. Apatheia does not mean being emotionless. It means not being enslaved by emotion. It is not the death of feeling. It is the discipline of not letting feeling become a tyrant. You may feel anger, but anger must not choose your words. You may feel sadness, but sadness must not define your worth. You may feel fear, but fear must not design your future. Emotion is like ink. In the hand of wisdom, it gives depth to the page. It makes the story human. It gives color, weight, memory, and meaning. But when ink spills without discipline, it blurs the whole manuscript. This is what happens when emotion is not examined. One painful moment becomes a belief. One rejection becomes an identity. One failure becomes a prophecy. The result is inner confusion. You no longer know whether you are responding to the present or obeying the past. The Stoic lesson is clear. Feel deeply, but do not let feeling become law. Fourth, remember that your flaws are not excuses. Many people want to be accepted as they are, but refuse to take responsibility for what they have become. They say, "This is just who I am." But often, that sentence is not truth. It is fear, refusing correction. If you are jealous, examine it. If you are reactive, train it. If you are bitter, confront it. If you are afraid of abandonment, do not turn that fear into control. A wound may not be your fault, but healing is still your responsibility. This is harsh, but it is merciful. Because as long as you believe your pain has all authority, you remain powerless. But the moment you accept responsibility, not blame, responsibility, you recover the pen. The result is dignity. You stop using pain as a shield for destructive behavior. You begin to become someone trustworthy, not because you were never broken, but because you refuse to let brokenness become your ruler. The Stoic lesson is this: do not ask the world to accept your chains. Learn how to remove them. Fifth, the wound becomes wisdom only when it is examined. Unexamined pain repeats itself. Examined pain teaches. Ask yourself, what did this wound make me believe? Did it make me believe I am unlovable? Did it make me believe everyone leaves? Did it make me believe I must perform to be chosen? Did it make me believe peace is unsafe because chaos feels familiar? These questions are not comfortable, but they are necessary. Socrates taught that an unexamined life is not worth living. And a wound that is never examined becomes a hidden ruler. It speaks through your reactions. It chooses your relationships. It decides what you tolerate. It whispers, stay small, stay guarded, stay afraid. The result of examination is freedom. You begin to separate the event from the meaning you attach to it. The Stoic lesson is final. Do not only ask what hurt you, ask what the hurt taught you to believe, and whether that belief is still worthy of your soul. From all of this, we see the deeper truth. Your pain may be part of your story, but it is not the author. Your scars may remain, but they do not have to command your hands. Your past may explain why the first pages were difficult, but it does not have permission to write the ending. Apatheia is not coldness. It is the sacred moment when you feel the wound. Look at the ink, breathe through the trembling, and still choose virtue. And here is the insight. The wound loses power when it no longer writes alone. So take back the pen, not because the past was harmless, but because your future is too sacred to be written by the thing that hurt you. Amor Fati and the fullness that makes you irreplaceable. First, understand this. A person who does not choose themselves will keep begging to be chosen by others. This is one of the quietest forms of suffering. You wait for a message, you wait for an apology, you wait for someone to return, to explain, to notice, to finally say, I see your worth now. But every hour spent begging to be chosen is an hour spent abandoning your own soul. Maybe you have loved this way before. You lowered your standards just to keep someone close. You silenced your needs so they would not call you difficult. You accepted half effort, half truth, half love, and called it patience. But patience, without self-respect, becomes self-betrayal. The result is emptiness. You may be close to someone, but feel farther from yourself than ever. The Stoic lesson is this. Do not ask another person to give you the worth you refuse to give yourself. Second, the Stoic does not beg for a place in someone's life. The Stoic observes, does this person honor my peace? Does this connection strengthen my virtue? Does this love make me more honest, more courageous, more alive? Or does it make me smaller? This is not arrogance. This is discernment. A person with self-respect does not believe they are better than everyone. They simply no longer agree to be treated as less than human. There is a difference between having a soft heart and having no boundaries. There is a difference between forgiving someone and handing them the weapon again. There is a difference between loving deeply and disappearing inside another person's chaos. The result of standards is clarity. You stop asking, why don't they choose me? You begin asking, why did I keep choosing what wounded me? The Stoic lesson is simple. Standards are not walls against love. They are gates that protect the sacred. Third, love from fullness, not from lack. Love that comes from lack is heavy. It clings. It fears. It watches every pause, every tone, every delay, every silence. It says, if you leave, I will collapse. But love from fullness speaks differently. It says, I choose you, but I do not lose myself in you. This is not coldness. This is mature love. A whole person can love deeply without turning another human being into a god. A whole person can stay present without begging for rescue. A whole person can give affection without secretly demanding repayment for every wound. The result is peace. Your love becomes a gift, not a transaction. Your presence becomes light, not pressure. The Stoic lesson is this. Never turn love into a begging bowl. Fourth, Amor Fati means loving the path that shaped you. Not because every part of it was good, not because betrayal was kind, not because loss was gentle, but because even the things that hurt you became part of the fire that forged your soul. Amor Fati does not mean pretending pain was beautiful. It means refusing to waste your life hating the road that brought you back to yourself. Think of every rejection that made you stronger, every silence that taught you to stop chasing, every disappointment that revealed your standards, every ending that returned you to your own hands. At the time, you called it destruction. But now, perhaps, you can call it training. The result is freedom from resentment. You no longer kneel before the past, demanding that it become different. The Stoic lesson is clear. What cannot be changed must be transformed into wisdom. Fifth, when you live from fullness, you become impossible to replace. Not because you are perfect, not because you are flawless, not because you perform better than others, but because your presence is no longer borrowed. You are not pretending, you are not begging, you are not trying to purchase love with self-abandonment. You are simply there, grounded, honest, awake, and whole. And people feel that. They feel when someone is not desperate to be chosen. They feel when someone can love without clinging. They feel when someone carries peace that was earned through fire. This is the kind of presence people remember, not the loudest person, not the most beautiful mask, not the one who always says yes, but the one who stood in truth without needing the world to applaud. The result is quiet magnetism. You stop chasing attention and begin carrying weight. The Stoic lesson is final. A whole soul does not need to beg to be unforgettable. From everything we have walked through, the path is clear. The mask had to fall. The hands had to return to what they could control. The roots had to grow in darkness. The wound had to release the pen. And now the soul must stop begging for a seat at tables that require self-betrayal. This is Amor Fati. To look at your life, your losses, your scars, your lonely seasons, your wrong turns, and say, I will not hate the fire that forged me. Here is the final insight. You do not become irreplaceable by making others afraid to lose you. You become irreplaceable by becoming so whole that no one can possess you, imitate you, or reduce you again. So choose yourself, not with pride, not with cruelty, but with the calm dignity of a soul that has finally remembered its own name. And when you stop abandoning yourself, the right people will not ask you to shrink. They will recognize the light, and they will rise to meet it. Now, my friend, look back at the road we have walked. We began with the mask, that quiet, polished, acceptable face you wore, so the world would not question you too deeply. At first, it helped you survive. But slowly, it became a prison. And the soul, no matter how patient, cannot breathe forever behind a false face. Then we came to control. Like the potter before the spinning wheel, you learned that not everything belongs in your hands. Other people's opinions, their loyalty, their affection, their judgment, their decision to stay or leave, these are not your clay. Your response is, your courage is, your virtue is, your discipline is. Then we entered the dark soil of Logos. You saw that not every season of silence is a punishment. Some seasons come to deepen you. Some losses come to remove what was false. Some delays come to strengthen what was weak. The seed does not know it has been planted. It only feels buried. And still, it grows. Then we faced the wound. The wound was real. The pain mattered. But pain was never meant to hold the pen forever. A scar can belong to your story without becoming the author of your destiny. Apatheia does not mean that you feel nothing. It means you feel deeply, but still choose wisely. And finally, we came to Amor Fati, to love the path, not because every part of it was gentle, but because every part of it forged something within you. Every betrayal that taught you discernment, every silence that taught you self-respect, every ending that returned you to your own soul. This is the great lesson. You do not become free when the world finally understands you. You become free when you no longer abandon yourself in order to be understood. Let the world misunderstand for a while. Let the wrong people leave. Let the crowd whisper. Let old versions of you disappear. A life built on truth will cost you illusions. It will cost you false belonging. It will cost you the comfort of being easily accepted by people who only loved your mask. But in return, it will give you something rare, your own soul back. And once a person has returned to themselves, they become difficult to manipulate, difficult to possess, difficult to replace. not because they are hard, cold, or unreachable, but because they no longer live like beggars outside the gates of approval. They stand, quietly, clearly, fully. This is what Stoic philosophy asks of you. Not to become perfect, not to become emotionless, not to become admired by everyone, but to become governed from within, to speak with honesty, to act with virtue, to feel without being enslaved, to love without disappearing, to lose without collapsing, to be seen or unseen, praised or criticized, chosen or rejected, and still remain loyal to the deepest truth within you. So when this video ends, do not merely return to your old life. Return to yourself. Before you answer that message, ask if it honors your peace. Before you apologize, ask if you are truly wrong or merely afraid. Before you chase someone, ask what part of you is begging to be chosen. Before you hide your truth, ask what mask is trying to climb back onto your face. And before you say, "This is just who I am," ask whether it is truly your nature or only an old wound speaking in your voice. My friend, the world does not need another polished mask. It does not need another person pretending to be fine. It does not need another soul shrinking itself to fit into hands too small to hold it. The world needs people who have walked through fire and did not become cruel. People who have been wounded and did not let the wound become their master. People who have been rejected and did not turn rejection into hatred. People who can stand before life and say, "I will not betray myself for applause. I will not trade my virtue for belonging. I will not let fear write my name." And here is the final truth. You were never meant to be remembered by everyone. You were meant to be real, with the few who could recognize truth when they saw it. So live truthfully, not loudly, not desperately, not to prove anything. Live truthfully because the soul knows when it is being lied to. Live truthfully because peace cannot grow in the soil of self-betrayal. Live truthfully because one day, when you stand before the mirror again, you should not have to ask, "Is this still me?" You should be able to look into your own eyes and say, "Yes, this is me. Not perfect, not finished, but finally no longer pretending." And from that moment, my friend, fate begins to change its tone. Because the person who stops abandoning themselves becomes a person the world can no longer easily break.